RNP stands for Required Navigation Performance, an aircraft IFR navigation specification of the Performance-Based Navigation (PBN) concept. The PBN concept allows optimizing the instrument's procedure design with the aircraft navigation performance. RNP is used en route to reduce aircraft separation in terminal areas to optimize arrival and departure procedures. RNAV and RNP are similar. RNP includes a requirement of onboard navigation performance monitoring and alerting. One not having such a requirement is referred to as an RNAV. RNP with AR, authorization required, are instrument approach procedures that require specific approval from the regulatory authorities prior to being flown. RNP AR does not include those buffer margins shown on the RNAV lateral obstacle protection areas. Take a look at the path definition sketch. Non-standard speeds or climb gradients and temperature limits, with or without temperature compensation, are additional typical characteristics of the RNP AR. The specific requirements of the RNP includes the capability to follow a desired ground track, including turns or radius, to affix RF legs till the final approach segment and use of vertical angles or specific altitude constraints to define a desired vertical path. The monitoring, alerting, and capabilities would require display and indication of the navigation and monitoring alerting the crew if the performance requirements are not met. The RNP AR installed on the E-jets utilizes the existing basic navigation architecture installed on the aircraft. The system provides means to deselect specific navigation aids to prevent an inadequate sensor from decreasing flight accuracy. Means to check the availability of the GPS with a destination are also available to the crew. RNP AR approaches have been flight tested for one-engine operation and also with various system failures. The approaches were found suitable. However, one cannot start an RNP AR approach with one engine previously failed. The aircraft is required to maintain its position with the designed accuracy for the airspace, taking into account navigation accuracy and flight technical error. The aircraft is also required to maintain one-time RNP positional accuracy in the cross-track and along track directions for the current airspace 95% of the time. The accuracy is measured in nautical miles. An RNP 0.3 simply means the accuracy required is within 0.3 nautical miles. RNP values are usually smaller for terminal areas than en route procedures. Typically, RNP 10 is designed for oceanic area, whereas it is 0.1 or 0.3 during approach procedures. RNP AR approaches, as previously stated, include capabilities that require special aircraft and crew authorizations similar to Category 2 or 3 operations. Each operator is responsible for training and evaluating flight crews and dispatchers for the specific RNP AR operations exercised by the operator. A means of monitoring the RNP program with the operator's organization should also be established. Let's take a look at the RNP cockpit procedures. This is just a generic overview, as operators might be required to change the procedures outlined herein to fit it to a specific destination, as long as they comply with AC 90-101 or AMC 20-26. Prior to each RNP flight, you must check the aircraft minimum configuration as shown in the table. Then it is time to initialize the FMS, activate the flight plan, initialize and set the performance data. Check in the GPS NOTAMs if there is any inoperative GPS satellite. Deselect it, if any, to allow for an accurate predictive RAIM. Moreover, during the flight preparation, check the RNP availability at the time and location of the desired approach on the MCDU. This can be performed by an offline ground station or with the own airplane capability. There are 3 methods to perform the check of the airplane capability. On the first method, start by inserting the ETD on the active flight plan. Get the nav index page. Select Position Sensors 1, then select GPS 1 or 2. Select Predicted RAIM on the GPS 1 or 2 status. A yes on the page, without a specific RNP value displayed on the page, indicates RAIM is less than or equal to the selected RNP approved minimum. On the second method, get the destination RAIM page and check the RAIM status. Finally, on the third method, check the RAIM status page on destination RAIM page. On the predictive RAIM page, select Pilot Selection and insert the desired airport on the following page, also checking the RAIM status. The next task includes inserting the appropriate navigation sensors in accordance with NOTAMs. To do it, get the Position Sensor page and select VOR DME, then select NOTAM. On the NOTAM page, insert the sensors in the temporary or on the permanent column. Now verify if the current navigation database is up to date for the duration of the flight. Open the Nav Ident page and check the active NDB field. If the IRAC cycles changes during the flight, the locations of the waypoints used to define routes and procedures must be verified with current navigational charts. Take your destination airport approach chart and check it. The notes may contain limitations for the procedure, such as temperature limits or non-standard climb gradients. If flight crew plans to use a decision altitude associated with a non-standard missed approach climb gradient, they must ensure that the airplane will be able to comply with the published climb gradient for the planned airplane loading, atmospheric conditions, and operating procedures before conducting the operation. Activate the temperature compensation if necessary. On the Nav Index 2.2 page, select Maintenance. Select Setup, and then Flight Configuration. On the Flight Configuration 2.2, select Temperature Compensation Configuration, then select Hot and Cold. This setting is required only once. On the next flight, it is not required. The RNP AR approach procedures are designed to be flown with FMS and VNAV glide path, VGP, enabled. LNAV must also be engaged to ensure compliance with desired ground track. Before the approach briefing, take the same list you checked during the pre-flight and evaluate if any failure has occurred which affected the equipment required to perform the RNP AR approach. Get the VOR DME pages 1.2 and 2.2 on both MCDUs and deselect all VORs and DMEs. The crew must confirm that the correct approach procedure has been selected by comparing the FMS waypoints with the approach chart and ensure the reasonableness of track angles and distances. Do not modify the procedure from the onboard navigation database and do not add or delete waypoints from the procedure. The only modification that may be made is a direct to affix before the FAF, as long as it does not precede an RF leg and is cleared by ATC. Now activate the temperature compensation if necessary. On the landing page 1.2, insert the appropriate temperature as furnished by the ATC, then select Temperature Compensation. The temperature compensation feature is intended to overcome the chart temperature restriction to fly the RNP AR approach. The temperature value used should be the current local temperature for the airport and runway of the intended landing. Coordinate the use of the feature with ATC. Failure to do so could result in a loss of vertical separation with other traffic. On the last temperature compensation page, insert the appropriate MDA and check the compensated MDA. Check the flight plan altitude and invert video, the altitude constraints on the PFD, and vertical profile altitudes and invert video. Prior to the IAF, the flight crew must set the desired RNP accuracy value. The default approach value, 0.3, is automatically updated 2 nautical miles before the FAF. For airplanes with load 23 and on, there is no need to manually insert the RNP value, as the FMS automatically retrieves it from the procedure database according to each leg. For airplanes with load 21.3 or earlier, the value of 0.3 must be manually inserted if the IAF is more than 2 nautical miles before the FAF. To set the value, select RNP on the Progress page 2-3 and then insert the RNP. Check on the lower right-hand corner of the PFD the area indication changing from terminal to approach. It will happen at 2 nautical miles before the FAF. The RF legs are identified by an A from ARC, an invert video at the side of the waypoint, and the active flight plan. If the approach chart is more restrictive than the speeds shown, use it. Set the landing, approach, and go around speeds. Set the altimeter's QNH. If the current local altimeter QNH is not available, do not perform the approach. Cross-check the altimeters when over a waypoint and be sure that the difference is not greater than 100 feet. If it is, begin a missed approach. Monitor the track deviation at all times. The deviation can be monitored through the vertical and lateral scales and CDI on the PFD. Vertical deviation must not exceed 75 feet high or low during the final approach segment. During initial and intermediate segments, the vertical deviation indicator should be centered. Lateral deviation must not exceed the RNP value, one-time RNP, at any time during the approach, or RNP 0.3 or higher approaches. On the CDI and PFD, 2 dots on the lateral deviation scale corresponds to 1 RNP. On the vertical deviation scale, 2 dots corresponds to 500 feet on terminal area. At 2 nautical miles from the FAF, the scale shifts to 75 feet per dot. In addition, the deviation indication on the MFD map display can be used to cross-check the lateral deviation. Press the toggle button and reselect LNAV. Failure to immediately re-engage LNAV and follow the flight director's guidance could result in the airplane departing the airspace provided and the designed go-around path. Press the toggle button. Check that the LNAV has re-engaged and proceed as in any normal go-around procedure. For RNP equal to or greater than 0.3, only 1 GPS is required to perform the approach. If you have 2 operational GPSs, it means you can lose 1 GPS during the approach and still complete it, as the automatic reversion will take place. If you lose the remaining GPS during the approach, just accomplish a go-around procedure. However, you cannot start the approach with a GPS previously failed if it is the only one you have. Degraded navigation will occur whenever the EPU is greater than RNP, or if the navigation sensors are not available during the final approach. Degraded navigation is announced by the associated message at the PFD or Unable RNP message on the scratch pad. In addition, the VGP mode will disengage and will revert to the FBA mode, or not engage if it is not the active mode.